So what we're going to do is, it's called corpsing. I don't know if some of you that's probably familiar. Since you brought hands, you probably are all about corpsing. Basically, when you're corpsing a pumpkin, the idea is to kind of make it look creepy and old. It's not necessarily to make it look realistic, like a real rotted pumpkin or something. It's because pumpkins don't rot like this. They collapse in on themselves and they look awful. There's different materials that you can use for this, and we can talk about that. These, like this one, is a layer of cheesecloth and then some cotton and then some paint. So I'll pass these around and you guys can look at them. And this one is the cotton that we're going to do. And then it's actually, I used paper towels for a skin over the cotton so that I could tear it and make it look like kind of a Clive Barker kind of thing going on. Also a little fun note, I coated this with an Elmer's glue and water mixture first. So I coated the teeth on this side with that, and I didn't coat the teeth on this side with anything. And this is an expanded polystyrene pumpkin, so when I hit it with the black spray paint, all of the teeth on this side rotted to hell. But the teeth on that side stayed better. So.
Did you know that would happen?
Yes.
That was the intended effect.
That was the intended effect. And then this one, largely just cotton balls. I did shape the eyebrows with some aluminum foil, and then I made a stem for it out of some twine. You need carving tools for your pumpkins. I taped over the tip because I long ago lost the safety tip. Oh, you don't need a knife because you brought a blow mold. All right, cool. So while you guys are thinking about your face and thinking about carving, there was a couple of things I thought I'd do to pass the time a little bit. I brought these in just to show a couple of different aging or weathering effects that might interest the kind of person who is also interested in turning a pumpkin into a corpse. So the first thing, and I understand that a lot of you are probably already aware of this, but the first thing I'm going to show you while you're carving your pumpkin is called a wash. This is a mixture of some brown paint, just some brown acrylic paint, and about 1.5 times as much water and a little dab of soap to break the surface tension of the water. The purpose of a wash is to thin it down and kind of make sure that you get your paint into all of the cracks and crevices. And what happens is, if whatever textures are in the sculpt, they're going to come out because all of this dark stuff is going to settle down inside. So if you use a real thick paint, it covers a little bit more, but it also doesn't get into the fine cracks. The more you thin it, then the more it gets into the fine cracks. But also then kind of the less it covers. But that's not the entire process.
So that just sort of to give it like a base color?
Kind of, yeah. So what it's doing is it's getting into all of the cracks. So I could let this dry and then kind of rub it off, and it starts leaving behind the paint in the low spots. So if this were a little bit thicker, then that would show up a little bit stronger. And the beauty of a wash is, if I think that that's, like I'm looking at that and thinking, well, you know, it really needs to be dirtier, I can just do some more and just do some more. All right, so the other thing that I wanted to cover is actually what we're going to be doing a lot of, and it's dry brushing. I took a jar that I've corpsed, and on one side I put the texture on it and painted it black, and on the other side I've done the same, but then I've gone back over it with the dry brush. And you can see that you see a lot more of the detail when you do the dry brush. And it really is just put the paint on, take as much of it off as you can, and then start brushing it with the dry brush.
And it really helps to have short, stiff bristle on a dry brush.
Absolutely. That's why we have cheap chip brushes.
And that's just acrylic paint?
This is just acrylic paint. You could do it with anything, but I would recommend acrylic or latex. I recommend it, especially if you haven't dry brushed before. You start in the back. It's not that you will totally destroy your piece, but if you are trying to dry brush for the very first time and you do this, you're going to be, oh, now I have to completely wipe that off and start all over again, right? Because that's not bringing out detail, it's obscuring it. And like I go across the teeth so that I get as little paint as possible in the vertical pieces. So it looks a lot different, right? I mean, just one pass with the dry brush, and now it already looks like something that's, in my opinion, it looks more more detailed and more interesting than just a flat black piece. So those are the two kind of main aging methods that pretty much anybody can do. We're not going to do the wash today because the wash is really more for non-porous kind of materials, plastic or rubber. If you're doing something like this that's still very, very porous, the wash will sink in and you won't get the effect you want. You'll get a big mud piece, right? So, all right, you guys probably want to get started then, right? All right, so we're going to start with the cotton balls. Cotton balls, you may or may not know, unravel into long, beautiful, flesh-like strips of soft, cottony goodness. So this is where we're going to get our texture. It's not a particular brand. You can actually, if you look for cotton wool, you can buy sheets of this stuff, or a roll that's kind of like a gauze roll, but it's thicker like this stuff. So I also brought some cups. We're going to take our ordinary Elmer's glue. So it's about 50-50 water and glue. So I just mix it up, 50-50 water and glue, and it's not gonna be used real thick. It takes probably less than you think. Here's a fun note. If you have one of these really thin ones, not the Funkins that are thick foam, but the thinner ones, and you're of a mind to, and you can break your pumpkin doing this, but you can kind of squeeze it until the seam pops, and now you can hang it flat on your wall or on your door. Also, what I would usually do with these is I would put stuff in from the inside, and it was just easier to do that and then glue the pumpkin back together.
Like what stuff would you put inside?
Lights and stuff?
Lights, or if I wanted like spider web in there. I used it for steam pumpkins if I wanted some mechanical stuff in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on my pumpkin, and then I'm just going to take my pumpkin ball and I'm just going to kind of lay it down on top of these higher, we call them ribs, right? Ribs of the pumpkin. So it'll just kind of stick just from that glue. So the one that's kind of right there in the middle, the larger one in front of the cat, it's got eyebrows that stick out. And the way that I did that was I just took some foil and I just kind of shaped it into eyebrows, and then I just stuck it on with tape. So if you want to add, like you want to have the eyes protrude, or you want to have the nose coming out like a witch or something, then I've got foil. Just let me know and we'll go over adding some three-dimensional stuff. And of course that you want to put down before you put down the cotton balls. You can even just use tape. Like I could just use this tape and I could kind of fold it and get myself some raised areas, right? Like I don't know if that's an eyebrow or a sword fighting scar. I don't know his story. But once I did that, then I could, when I put the stuff over it, it'll be a raised area there. And then also I could kind of chip it away so that it's raised and then it goes down more like a more recent wound kind of a thing. So once I've got the cotton just kind of down where I want it, in this case I want the cotton to go with the pumpkin, to go in the same area or direction. So I'm just going to take my brush and kind of paint over the top with the water and glue mixture. So for the record, you can take the cotton balls and then dunk them into the glue and then put them on. They're going to be completely saturated. If it's your first time, it's going to be really hard to work with and really hard for it not to compress all the way down. So you have to use 3 or 4 cotton balls to get the depth that you could normally get with just one. If you're doing a cat or a skull, you might stretch it out over some of the, like over the ribs, or you might give it eyebrows with the cotton itself if that's what you wanted to do. If anybody was feeling really experimental, I found this little package of Model Magic at the dollar store as well. Model Magic is a craft foam, squishy like putty, and then when it dries up, it stays a little rubbery and squishy. I thought it might make a cool eyeball.
What are you supposed to do with the tape?
So the question is basically, when you've got your eyes and your mouth cut out, do you cover them with the cotton? And the answer is usually not. Usually you'll go up to, like, you might build some eyebrow ridges, or you might build some bags under the eyes. But you would normally leave that more or less clear.
You wouldn't put any cotton balls at all?
I would put cotton balls on the face. Everywhere on the face, I would just leave those openings.
Okay, got it.
I brought a secret weapon at the dollar store, 100 fake nails. Fake nails in a pumpkin look a lot like teeth. And if you take that craft knife and you score them up real good, and then you do that wash I was talking about, all of the brown or black gets into those, and now they look like cracked and gnarly teeth. So if you have a haunt, if you decorate and you want people to know about it, azhauntmap.com, you can put your haunt information right on there. It doesn't cost anything. Just like everybody should, already belong to azhaunters.com. I didn't bring like pantyhose, but Dollar Tree sells pantyhose. Buy the biggest you can, but it makes a pretty cool skin. You stretch that out after you've kind of laid down the musculature underneath, and you stretch it out, and you can put holes in it. I wanted to mention, so this particular method of laying down the cotton balls and painting on top of them, I consider this like for a hero prop, right? Like the prop that sits out front. It takes a lot longer than some of the other methods, but it looks a lot better. Plastic tarp corpsing, where they basically wrap a piece like a skeleton with plastic, and then they hit it with a heat gun, and it shrinks up, and that can look pretty good. But in my opinion, that's better for after they've seen a really cool one up front, and then they're, because there's not as much detail in those.